All right, so let's get going. As you'll notice in the essay outline, the first paragraph in the introduction, one of the first things that we start with is the thesis statement. And there's a shortcut to doing this thesis statement in the sense that you're going to use the words of the prompt. You use as many words of the prompt as you can in your thesis statement, and I'll show you how we can do that. So first of all, in the first paragraph, to denote a paragraph, and we'll talk more about formatting an essay in a later video, but to start a paragraph, we're going to indent 5 spaces. So I'm just going to go, here's my cursor, and I'm just going to tap the space bar 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and start in. So the thesis statement is, who do I admire? And I'm going to say, the person I admire is my granny. That's a perfect one. Or maybe you could say, Granny is someone I admire. The key is that you want to indicate the person's name, and you want to indicate the key term or the key word, which is admire. Now notice I'm just stating the person's name. I'm not going into anything right now. We're going to go into the 3 main ideas now in the next 3 sentences. Now this is just one format of doing this, and throughout the course we'll cover different formats of doing the introduction, but I think this is pretty much a good straightforward way to get going with an introduction. So we have our thesis statement, which is right here. The person I admire is my granny. So I'm answering the question. Now I want to state the 3 ideas or the 3 reasons that I admire my granny. And I've already done a little pre-writing myself, as you have last week. And these are some of the ideas I came up with. So my ideas are that I really admire the way my granny infuses love in her cooking. I also admire her kindness. It's inspirational. And the third thing that I admire is that she's really wise. I like that. Now notice that I'm thinking in 3s. It's a 5-paragraph essay, and looking at the outline and the diagram as well, you'll notice that we have an introduction and we have a conclusion, which are each a paragraph each, and then we have 3 body paragraphs. Each idea will get its own body paragraph. Okay? Now, in some assignments, you may not have just a 5-paragraph essay. Say, for example, if you're in graduate school, you could have a 10-page paper. So your paper could be, maybe it's 5 points, 5 ideas that you're talking about. And so in that case, you might have 5 body paragraphs along with an introduction and a conclusion. Or perhaps each of your 5 paragraphs might be broken down into sub-ideas. Now, I'm not going to go too far into that right now. We'll discuss that at a later time. But I just wanted to let you know that this standard 5-paragraph structure that we're following can be adjusted to various lengths, even for like 100, 200, 300-page dissertations. All right. So back to our outline diagram. Here is my thesis statement. The person I admire is my granny. And now I'm going to state my 3 ideas. To begin with, I'm just going to state the 3 ideas in 3 separate sentences. Sometimes we can put them in one sentence, but really what we're striving for is a paragraph that has 4 to 6 sentences. So if we could put an idea in a separate sentence, that will give us a couple more sentences and the 4 to 6 sentences that we need for each paragraph. All right, so let's get going. My one idea was how my granny infuses love in her cooking. So I'm just going to say, first, comma, I admire how granny infuses love in her cooking. Okay. Second, granny's kindness is an inspiration I admire. Third, comma, Granny is so wise. I really admire her for her wisdom. Now notice I made a typo right there, okay? And I didn't stop. This is key. When you're writing your ideas or you're writing out your sentences and you're in the flow and you're in your creativity, you don't want to stop and interrupt that to correct a misspelling or to look up a word or something like that, especially when you're writing your first draft. You just want to get the ideas out there, let it flow, because it's going to take its natural progression if you allow your creativity to flow. And in many cases, it's almost as if the paper will write itself. Okay, so I have my thesis statement. I have my 3 ideas. I'm going to correct this right here. And then the last thing, if you take a look at your outline, you'll notice that the last thing in the introduction is a wrap-up sentence, as a sentence to close up this first paragraph. Later on, we'll talk about transition sentences, but for now, let's just put something in there that makes sense. And I'm just going to say, I love my granny. I love my granny. Period. All right, there we go. There's our introduction. Now, I know it sounds a little like, oh, you know, first, second, third, that sounds so boring. And if it does, we can change that. And I'll work more with that later. But I just want to have you have the standard structure here with the first idea, the second idea, and then the third idea. All right? So now let's move on into our first body paragraph, or our second sentence of the essay. And our second paragraph of the essay. So our first body paragraph will be about our first idea, which is this right there, okay? Now, it's very important as you're working on your body paragraphs that you present your body paragraphs in the same order that you presented your ideas in your introduction, all right? So this one's going to have to go first for me. So watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to highlight this and copy it. And then I'm going to come down here into my next paragraph. I'm going to indent it 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm just going to paste in, doink, my first idea. Now this is actually the topic sentence for my body paragraph. The topic sentence says what the whole paragraph is about. It's different than the thesis statement. The thesis statement is what the whole essay is about. The whole essay is about how I admire my granny. This paragraph is going to be about how I admire the way she infuses love in her cooking. Now, you might look at that and you might say, well, what do you mean by that, TJ? What do you mean she infuses love in her cooking? Well, that's what this paragraph is about, for me to explain that to you so that you understand what I mean and why I admire it. And hopefully, I'll use descriptive language so you could almost smell and sense and actually be there with us at Sunday dinner and taste the love in Granny's cooking. Okay? So we can go first here. I'm just going to take this out and I'm just going to say I admire how Granny infuses love in her cooking. Right. Now, a great way to lead into explaining what this is, I love this little trick, is just to write for example, comma. Okay? Now, I've already written out my descriptive paragraph, just like you have, on one of the ideas. And the idea that I chose was this first one, how Granny infuses love in her cooking. And I wrote out a descriptive paragraph, and I'm just going to type that out here from what I've already written down. Okay? So here we go. For example, I remember the aroma of Sunday dinner flowing from Granny's country kitchen. The deep, rich scent of a chicken roasting in fresh vegetables from her garden, intertwined with her famous sweet, moist spice cake. Can you almost like smell and taste that stuff right now? That is descriptive language. Now, I know I've stopped right in the middle of my paragraph here, but I wanted you to kind of see how the showing is happening rather than the telling. Now, this isn't perfect. Remember, this thing is just a rough draft, so I can go back and change words around and add things. That's no problem. But I'm just beginning to build that descriptive language so that you can begin to understand what I mean by how I admire Granny and how she infuses love in her cooking. Okay? All right, so moist spice cake would bring a calm to me. It was really cool. It's like as you walk into the house, you could smell this, and then it was just like, oh, I'm at Granny's. And this calm would come over me, like, oh, like I'm safe, I'm comfortable, and I'm loved. That's kind of what I'm trying to convey here. All right, so another sentence. My mouth watering with anticipation. I was comforted to know the day held comfort and joy as Granny brought us together as family to savor her meal of love. I love that last kind of little phrase there. All right, so notice I kept typing. I do have a typo here. And one little trick here is if you double click, and I'll go more into detail about how to format this. I can come here, and there's my choices of spellings, and that's the one. Cool. There we go. Now, there might be some words left out, and right, like here, I use comforted twice, I think, in very close proximity. I'd probably want to change that word later, but I'm not here. Comforted and comfort. But I'm not going to worry about that right now because I'm kind of flowing with my first draft. Those little changes I can make later and look up words or think of a different word that might be more appropriate. All right? Now, here's my introduction. It's 4 to 6 sentences. Here's my first body paragraph that explains what I mean by this. All right? And do I have 4 to 6 sentences? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have four sentences with 2 that are rather long. So I might opt to shorten those later. I'll look closer to see if they are run-ons. But once again, that's not what I'm doing now. This is just a rough draft. I'll tend to that when I make revisions to this rough draft. Okay? All right, so let me lay out the rest of the essay on how to get it going or continue it. So we have our first idea here. And then I'm going to take my second idea, which is here, copy. And I can go up here to File, Edit, Copy. I come down here to my next paragraph, indent 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I paste it, edit, paste. There I go. And I'm just going to leave second there, because I want it to be clear to the reader that I'm now moving on to my next idea, our next main idea. We'll see how this flows once I get the whole thing together, whole essay. And I remember I could always change it in my revisions. Okay, second, Granny's kindness is an inspiration I admire. I didn't write out a descriptive paragraph here, but let's just wing it. I'm just going to put in some stuff here to fill it in so that I can complete the essay for you here. So I'm going to go with the for example. For example, every weekend she would take and give them to her neighbors. Let's see. She also raised chickens and would take several dozen of the eggs to the food bank each week. She really taught me to think about what others might need, and to try to help them if I could. And then what I like to do is, this whole essay is about admiring my granny. And you'll notice that I used admire here, but I haven't said admire anywhere in here. And up here, see, this is a key word, admire. I use it in the first part, but I don't really use it anymore. And it's time to kind of trickle that key word in there again. And in fact, in this first paragraph, it wouldn't hurt to kind of put it in here towards the end. So we'll talk more about key words. Like when you get a question that you're supposed to write on, there's key words and key phrases in that question that you want to trickle throughout your essay. In a way, it's kind of redundant, but it's necessary because it helps to let your reader know that you're on track. And to also to help your teacher, or if there's someone who's scoring your essay, to let them know that you're still sticking to the same topic. So you need to continue to, kind of like sprinkle in, like spice in those key words and key phrases throughout your essay. So I'm going to put that here. This is, how about something about my granny. Okay, there we go. I got the admire in there again, and it doesn't hurt to reiterate the word kindness because that's what this paragraph is about. All right, so it looks like I got some misspellings in here. I use really kind of probably too much in there. I'll need to change that. But that's, once again, is after I've written this rough draft. All right, it's part of my revisions. All right, cool. So now here's my introduction, my first body paragraph. We just wrote the second body paragraph. Let's do the third body paragraph, and it's about my granny being wise and how I admire her. So I'm going to copy that, go down, position my third body paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, indent, paste. And third, granny is so wise. I don't really like the way that's phrased. I think I'm going to need to change that, but I'll just kind of make a note of that to do that in my revision. So I'm just going to keep cruising, and I'm going to give an example of this. For example, let's see. I really like when you're giving examples and trying to make a point, stories really go far. So if you can think of a very specific example that really illustrates, like in this case, her wisdom, that's the best approach because it makes it very specific for your reader and simple to understand, right? For example, to help process the day. She always had wise things to say to me. Even though I was only a child. I hope okay, so this last sentence here, I hope I am as wise as Granny when I am her age, doesn't exactly say that I admire her, but it implies it, doesn't it? And then later, when I'm doing my revision of this rough draft, if it's not clear, if I need to trickle in that key word again, then I'll do it somewhere else, all right? Now, you'll notice I have some things that are underlined, that it's indicating that maybe I've misspelled things or I have a typo or something like that. I'm not going to worry about that right now, right? Because this is the rough draft, and I got to continue on with my creative flow. All right, so continuing on with my creative flow, You're going to love this little technique. All right, I got my introduction. I have my 3 body paragraphs, right? Now, I need my conclusion. So the conclusion is so close to the introduction that you could actually take the introduction word for word and stick it in the conclusion. Remember, the introduction and the conclusion are bookends to your essay, right? Your introduction says what you're going to write about. Your body paragraphs explain what you're writing about. And then in your conclusion, you repeat what you just wrote about. Okay, so you say what you're going to write about, you write about it, and then you tell your reader what you just wrote about. That's the format. So what I'm going to do is actually copy this whole thing, my introduction, come down into my conclusion right here, and I'm going to paste it in there. And I could actually leave it like that, and that would be fine. The conclusion is really, really close to the introduction. Now, I think it's best if you actually change some of these words around. So maybe I wouldn't use first, second, and third. Maybe I change the order, something like that. And we can look more into that later when we talk about revising and changing things around in the conclusion. All right, but there you have it. There's a rough draft of a 5-paragraph essay, and it's not too bad. So thanks for your attention through this, and I'll see you in the next video. And good luck with your writing. Have some fun.